the possibility of a serious infantile paralysis epidemic, health authorities of the city of San Antonio, Texas, attacked the germ carriers throughout the city. With the war-discovered DDT in special sprayers, sections of the city are blanketed with the insecticide in the fight to stop the spread of the dread poliomyelitis. Every suspected spot is sprayed.
The medical officer explains that buildings treated with DDT remain effective against mosquitoes for about 3 months. The Africans at first are not very impressed. Some are afraid that the DDT will poison them, while others suspect some sort of witchcraft. The entomologist calls for a bowl of porridge. This is sprayed with the solution in full view of the audience. He now eats several spoonfuls of the mixture to show that the contaminated food is harmless. Even this fails to convince the audience. Arab Kipkoy is the chief spokesman and states his objections with eloquence. He says that the new medicine is a bad poison that may exterminate the whole tribe.
It's been times where I couldn't move, couldn't walk, you know, so I've had my ups and downs with this illness. It's really tough.
That's Lee Johnson, a groundskeeper who took on agricultural giant Monsanto and won. For decades, there's been debate about whether their weed killer, Roundup, can cause cancer. After Johnson got cancer a few years ago, he took Monsanto to court, and in August, he won a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. And now claims that documents which came to light in that trial suggest Monsanto misled people about the possible risk of cancer. They're called the Monsanto Papers, and some of the studies in them were used by the Canadian government when it decided Roundup was safe for Canadians to use. As a result of reporting done by our colleagues at Radio-Canada's Enquête, Health Canada is now saying it will review the science upon which it made that decision. We'll tell you about that and hear from Johnson himself in a moment. But first, some background on Roundup. The important thing here is a chemical ingredient called glyphosate. It's the most widely used herbicide in the world and has made Monsanto billions of dollars. But then in 2015, the World Health Organization, the body responsible for cancer research, announced that glyphosate is probably carcinogenic to humans. In other words, it can probably cause cancer. Monsanto, acquired by Bayer earlier this year, disagrees and says there is an extensive body of research on glyphosate, including more than 800 rigorous registration studies that confirm that these products are safe when used as directed. Back in 2017, Health Canada reviewed the science and ruled that glyphosate is unlikely to pose a human cancer risk and allowed its ongoing use. For some Canadian environmental groups, Lee Johnson's lawsuit accusing Monsanto of causing his cancer was a goldmine of information. They've been pouring through the so-called Monsanto Papers and say they found internal Monsanto emails that show company scientists ghostwrote key scientific studies that Health Canada relied on when it approved the use of glyphosate in Canada in 2017. One group, Equiterre, says Monsanto is intentionally covering up conflicts of interests by lying about the authorship of these papers on the cancer risk of glyphosate. Elaine McDonald is with another environmental group called Eco-Justice. I spoke with her a couple of days ago and asked her what her group discovered when they started looking through the Monsanto Papers.
What we discovered is that some of the scientific studies that have been cited in the Monsanto Papers as having been ghost written by Monsanto or ghost edited by Monsanto were actually studies that the Health Canada relied on when they made the decision to register glyphosate for another 15 years in Canada.
What would be the implication of that? What does that mean?
Well, much of the Many of the papers that were ghostwritten by Monsanto were papers about the risk of cancer from exposure to glyphosate. So the implication is that Health Canada may have underestimated or perhaps not evaluated the risk of cancer the way they would have if they had not been ghostwritten by Monsanto. That is a potential implication.
That's a pretty profound implication. That due to these troubling allegations, Health Canada scientists are currently conducting a review of the hundreds of studies used to approve glyphosate.
For y'all that don't know, I am an integrated pest manager / groundsman. I get dirty every day. Some day I have clean days, sometimes I have dirty days. Today is one of those wet, dirty days, right?
Lee Johnson was proud of his job as a groundskeeper at several schools around San Francisco. Part of the job was spraying weed killers made by Monsanto, such as Roundup and Ranger Pro. He says there were no health warnings on the labels and that he was told it was safe enough to drink. Still, Johnson wore protective gear while spraying up to 30 times a year, up to 150 gallons a day. But he still got it on his skin. One day, a hose came loose, spraying chemicals inside his suit, and a few months later, a rash developed over his entire body. He said the rash got worse and worse. Johnson called Monsanto and says he spoke to a woman who sounded like she was reading from a script. She told him someone would follow up with them, but they never did. He started digging and learned from a supervisor there were studies linking glyphosate, a key ingredient in the Monsanto weed killers he'd been using, to cancer. He said he felt totally betrayed. Finally, in 2014, he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. In 2016, Johnson became the first person to take Monsanto to trial on allegations that it had hidden the cancer risks of its herbicide for decades. In 2018, he became the first to win.
Was failure to warn a substantial factor in causing harm to Mr. Johnson? Answer, yes. Did you find by clear and convincing evidence that Monsanto acted with malice or oppression? Answer, yes.
He was awarded $289 million in damages, later dropped to $78 million. Meanwhile, Johnson is covered in lesions, sometimes so painful he can't be in the sun. Some days, even fabric touching his skin is too much to bear. At 46, doctors have now given him 2 years to live. His wife and 2 young sons are devastated. Johnson says this was never about the money. It was always about protecting others from what happened to him. What is it that's driving you? What do you want to accomplish here?
To see the positive energy that came from so many people and so many people that had other, things that happened to them or family members, they were affected by NHL or, exposed to chemicals too, and they have their stories and they bring it to me and it's like, wow, it's really incredible. That people approach you crying or saying things and sharing their story, that gives me a whole new drive, a real push to push for the people now,
Now the company's still saying that it's safe. Is it true that you were told that it was safe enough to drink Roundup?
More than once.
Really?
It's harmless. Even this fails to convince the audience.
Yeah, more than once. I even seen a video about that too. And then it was a trainer that used to come out and train us, from a local company where we used to buy the product from. And that was, but, that's been said for years. That was a part of it, but hey, hopefully they will stop that, 'cause that's not funny and that's not cute.
You know that Monsanto, now owned by Bayer, is arguing that their product is safe, that it doesn't cause cancer, that was just the opinion of the jury in that case, and that it's completely safe. So do you feel you're having any impact?
They're a company that has to protect their company.